started. Mr. Gallimore, were you able to bring Sydney over?
She's still entering, so I will as soon as I can.
Okay, so I'm going to get started. So welcome everyone. Tonight marks our 7th presentation in our webinar series for Hispanic Heritage Month. So we are very excited to have our presenter here tonight. We only have 4 more opportunities tonight, Thursday, and then twice next week, and then that's it. So I'm so glad everybody has joined us tonight. Okay, so go ahead, our interpreter, Adriana, you are on.
Hola, buenas tardes, bienvenidos. Si quieren escuchar en español la presentación, en unos momentos van a ver abajo de la pantalla un icono con el globo terráqueo. Tienen que hacer clic en ese globo terráqueo y va a aparecer una lista de idiomas. Eligen el español, hacen clic nuevamente y van a poder escuchar en español la presentación. Y les pido que por favor lo pongan en el chat para saber que sí hay alguien escuchando en español y saber si se escucha bien y demás. Entonces, en unos momentos, en el icono del globo terráqueo que va a estar abajo de la pantalla, hacen clic. Luego vuelven a hacer clic en el idioma español para que puedan escuchar la presentación en español. Y si por favor ponen que si lo están escuchando en el chat. Gracias.
Muchas gracias, Adriana. And I want to thank everybody on this list and more who have helped us connect with our presenters and also helped us donate for our, well, you can't see it because I have a background, but we have these beautiful little swag bags we're going to be giving our presenters just as a small token of our appreciation. So thank you to Glendale Latino Association, Adelante Latinos, everyone on this list for donating money, donating time, and their talents, and our student moderators, who you'll meet our moderator here shortly. Our next strategic planning meeting for Adelante Latinos is Saturday, November 21st. And I know that seems like a long way off, but trust me, it will be here before you know it. It's from 9 to 11. It is via Zoom, and you are all welcome. This is a volunteer group working to help our K through 14 Latino students in Glendale. We also would like everyone here to share or connect with our social media. We have email, our website, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and a YouTube channel. So if you have friends who weren't able to see Cristina this evening, they can watch the video later on YouTube. So please note those. We've had 6 other speakers so far, all amazing people, and I encourage you to watch their videos in your spare time. They are just amazing. George last Thursday was great, and he is donating like 26 books to the students who came last week. He's going to send them each a book with a personal message, and we didn't even ask him to do that, so that's really awesome. Very excited about that. And I want to bring your attention to the celebration of art, Dia de los Muertos here in Glendale. There are these flyers are everywhere. We're going to be putting them out on our social media, as well as I'm sure your schools will be posting these as well. The deadline is October 28th, but please consider entering that art competition. We know we have a lot of budding artists out there, so please consider that. Thank you. And then, let's see, I think it's time for me to introduce, we were supposed to have 2 student moderators. Mr. Gallimore, did we get, oh, I see Sydney. Sydney, you're here, yes, ma'am? Can she hear me, Sydney?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hi, Sydney, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Good to see you tonight.
Nice.
So Sydney is our student mod. We were supposed to have Kayla Rodriguez tonight as well, but I don't see her. So we'll let Sydney go ahead and get started. I want to thank Mr. Gallimore and Mr. Hernandez, who are our backstage crew. Thank you very, very much. And I also, for the first time in 7 nights, I'm going to remember to say this. Please, we're going to, Mrs. Gonzalez is going to-
You can call me Perez, it's okay. It's
She
Perez
is
is
going to
okay.
take questions, and she really does want to interact with people. So please write your questions in the Q&A, and then there may even be an opportunity for you to raise your hand on the Zoom and ask the question yourself. So please consider doing that as well. And Sydney, take it away.
Cristina Perez, immigration attorney. A multifaceted woman, Cristina Perez is a successful lawyer, 3-time Emmy Award-winning television personality, radio host, entrepreneur, business owner, national author and columnist, and a devoted mother and wife. The daughter of Colombian immigrants, Perez was born in New York. As a young girl, she watched her parents struggle with racism, finances, and adapted to the U.S. culture with the foreign language. Perez learned to speak English at around the age of 10 and mastered both languages. She credits her family's guidance and desire to remain close to their heritage and culture for her personal and professional achievements. In 2006, Perez made her English language television debut on 20th Television's first-run syndicated Cristinas Court, which quickly became the second highest rated news show in U.S. syndication. In 2008, the show won the first ever Daytime Emmy Award for Outstanding Legal Court Show. In 2010, Cristinas Court won its third consecutive Emmy in the same category. Most recently, she is set to launch the first bilingual televised courtroom series this coming fall, titled Justice for All with Judge Cristina Perez. It will be produced in both Spanish and English simultaneously. Perez brings a fresh way of connecting with people. The ultimate crossover host, she's a hip, professional, multicultural woman who always seeks to introduce traditional values into the lives of people young and old. Consequently, she appeals to a wide variety of audiences nationwide.
Hello, it's my turn. Hello, everybody. Buenas noches. Es un placer estar con ustedes. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you, especially on such an important month where we celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month, which really means we celebrate our story, our family story, who we are, our accomplishments. And I think we know that we celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month because we want to make sure we celebrate those Hispanic Americans who have contributed and enriched our communities and our society. But I always say, and as I tell my 17-year-old daughter, I said, for me, Hispanic Heritage Month is every month, every single month of the year, because I love to celebrate our culture. I love to celebrate our stories because they're rich in experience and lessons. And I love to celebrate the love that we have for this country. So I don't like to limit us to just one month, even though I love October, but it's something that we need to express, and we need to let everybody understand that, especially our children, that this is something we need to celebrate with every day. I am 100% Latina. Both my father and my mother are from Colombia. I was born in the United States. I was raised in Guadalajara, Mexico. So I always say I have a foot in the Mexican culture as well as the Colombian culture. But I always describe myself as café con leche. You know, when you pour the creamer into your coffee, you have no idea once it's mixed, how can you separate the cream from the coffee? You can't. They're a perfect combination. You can't really take the cream or the coffee out after you've mixed it in. So that is often, in a very simplistic way, how I describe how I identify with my Hispanic, with my Latino culture, with my American culture. I don't want to separate it. I don't know where one begins or one ends. I'm just one. And for me, it's very important that I express that, especially to the young children who have faced, you know, questions or they're unsure if they should accept their culture. I remember I grew up in Mexico and I came back to the United States, not speaking a word of English. And my mother and my father, I remember we drove from Guadalajara in a car, in a Volkswagen, all the way back to California. And I remember my dad saying, "Do you remember any English?" I said, "Of course I do. Of course I do." And he's like, "How do you say cow?" And I said, "Moo," because I didn't know, but I knew I had to defend myself in one way. But I was also very proud that I was able to speak English, and at least I thought I did, but I was able to speak Spanish. And my mother always told me, if you speak two languages, eres dos personas. If you speak two languages, you're two people. And a lot of what I've done in my life, how my culture has affected every facet of my life, is part of my story. And I think something that is very important that I would love to share with you is my story and why I am the way I am. And that story starts with my parents. As I explained, my parents are from Colombia, and referring to America as the land of possibility and potential. My parents came from Colombia to the United States in about 1963 to pursue my father's dream of becoming a surgeon, and he wanted to provide a better life for himself and his family. So while pursuing his dream, he withstood unspeakable discrimination, confronted obstacles that were simply placed in front of him because of his accent. And he never let that affect him because he knew he was an educated man. But regardless being educated, it didn't matter to the person that met him. He had an accent. He was an immigrant. Automatically, he must be stupid. Automatically, he was not worth somebody's time. But as a result, his worth as a human being, as a professional, was devalued. So what happened was the worth that he had as a person was not as important as the fact that he was an immigrant and he had an accent. But he was judged on looks, on his accent. He understood this, and he took any type of employment that he could because he had a goal, and his goal was that. And he knew that in order to provide a career for himself and a better life for his wife, my mother, and my siblings, he had to leave all of that behind him, and he had to pursue what he wanted to do. He knew his identity. He knew he was so worth every opportunity this country offered him. He knew that he was going to take every opportunity and he would not squander it. He would not waste it. And despite these hard times, he knew that all the doors that were open to him, that eventually all those doors would mean something. So after many years of perseverance, 20 plus years of working his way up, working from factory worker to janitor, to you name it, he finally succeeded and became a surgeon. And my father will always tell you the fact that he was a Colombian immigrant in this country was the reason he was successful. It was the reason why he was a successful surgeon. He established his practice in Glendale, and he became a top surgeon. He earned honors and recognition in the process. And I always love to share that the story of this one immigrant, for me, is so important, but there's millions more similar stories that are like his, and dare I say, even more amazing than my father's. But for me, this is a story with all the hardships. And even today, I feel I have goosebumps thinking of the things he went through. But it is a story, both he and my mother, what they went through, that have really affected everything I do in my life. His strength and passion resonate in everything that I do. He and my mother left a valuable legacy, and a legacy that I know I have to carry on. So as a wife, as a mother, as a daughter, as a TV personality, an author, my culture, my parents, their story, my story is ingrained in every part of my life. Every single day, every moment of my life, I don't know how else to live, as I told you before. As a child coming to the United States, who was born in the United States, who was a citizen, but completely wasn't because I didn't know a word of English. kind of, if you may want to say, faced similar obstacles as other immigrant children who come. I didn't speak Spanish. I mean, I didn't speak English. So I wasn't, it was hard for me to make friends. And my mother always said that you went out there and you tried to do your best and you spoke to whoever you could. But I realized that having that experience had to matter. And I grew up, and I'm ashamed to say that I grew up thinking that I was ashamed that people would come over my house and listen to my mother and father speak a different language, and that, what are people going to think? But I soon learned that el que dirán doesn't matter. Who cares what people think? And once I started embracing that, I realized that was a very powerful tool. And I knew that my parents' story was going to serve me in every facet of my life. So as a wife, when I wrote my very first book, which we'll get into my books, as I said before, you know, my Latino culture has affected every facet of my life, as a mother, as a wife, as a woman, as a TV personality, in writing as an author and writing books. I remember as a wife thinking to myself, oh my goodness, I've worked so hard. I went through law school. Why do I have to come home and cook and clean and serve my husband? And I had the beautiful legacy of my mother, who wanted to be an attorney, but she couldn't, because her goal and her only purpose she felt when she moved to the United States, and she herself didn't know a word of English, was to support my father's dream, because she knew his dream was her dream. And eventually that was our dream. So I always called myself a confused feminist. And I said, I don't understand. I feel like I'm a powerful person. I went to law school. I'm now an attorney, but the first person I serve is my husband and my daughter. And then, you know, I realized there is absolutely nothing confusing about being a powerful, successful career woman and making dinner for your husband and making coffee for your boss at work, because our culture is uniquely unconfusing. We are authentic. We are genuine with how we are with people. There is nothing wrong with being that type of woman who is able to really juggle all those roles that our mothers taught us, that our fathers taught us. You know, my father always said, Mija, I just want you to have a job that you can defend yourself, that you don't have to rely on anybody else. And I became a lawyer because I hated what my father and mother went through. I hated even as a successful surgeon, I hated the bigotry, the sublime discrimination, that they went through. It bothered me as a child, even as a 51-year-old woman today. It bothers me, and I could tell you the stories of what had happened and how it happened. So I went into law because I knew it wasn't fair. And I really didn't understand that I was going to pick immigration because it was something that I didn't realize would happen, or I didn't realize I could defend. And it wasn't until I met my very first boss in school, who was Dominican, and he came to my law school to give a speech, and I was president of my law school. And he explained to me, my goodness, you know, as an immigration attorney, what I do is I continue to break the stereotype. And I loved that phrase. And as an immigration attorney, I continue to break the stereotype of what an immigrant is to this country. We are much more than what people think we are. We are doctors, we are scientists, we are business owners. Their statistics prove that Latina women are the largest number, or the largest percentage of women or small business owners, because they have to open their own businesses. Why? Because they have to juggle family, and they have to juggle bills, and they have to be able to juggle work. So what do? They start their own business. So that to me was so, it truly was inspiring. And the law that I chose was really because of my Hispanic heritage. I knew that as a Latina, I had to continue helping other Latinos, and I had to stop people thinking that immigrants were not incredibly able to start businesses, or were not scientists or doctors or athletes. And I always expressed, why is it that we call Sofia Vergara or Salma Hayek or Antonio Banderas or a famous baseball player from Mexico, Ismael Valdez, or whoever, or, you know, or our legendary Fernando, why do we call them extraordinary? Why aren't they immigrants? And we just have a very hypocritical way, I think, of label immigrants. So for me, my Hispanic heritage, the authenticity of who we were, the hard work, the ethic was a reason why I chose law. And it is a reason why I do that every day. As a woman, my Hispanic heritage affects me every day, as I said before. I know that being authentic is such a buzzword, but it's true. The warmth of the sincerity that naturally comes to a Latino is undescribable. We could be in a room and not know anybody in that room, but you know that by the end of the day, if we had to be there for an hour or 2 hours, we would know everybody. We do not have anything unabashed about who we are and how we can connect to people. I think that's such an important thing. And quite honestly, as an author, writing books to me has been truly a blessing, an incredible gift of how I'm able to really write down everything I feel about my identity, my culture on paper. And being an author really allows you to put everything you have in writing. So it's always present. So it's always going to be in the future. And my first book that I wrote, Living by los Dichos, an advice from a mother to a daughter, was exactly that. I was still struggling with how I grew up 50-50, how I grew up café con leche. I couldn't separate myself. And I realized, oh my goodness, it was such a gift. It was a way to celebrate how I embraced every part of my life. And that first book really explained, and I think I really was able to solidify that my identity came from my parents, it came from my culture, and I was a fool for not looking at it sooner. And it was the reason why I became successful. My second book also really had, and I'll explain to you why I went through these books, but the second book, Living by los Advice from a Woman, Advice from a Woman for Strong, Sexy, and Smart, I always laughed because my publisher was Latino, and he said to me, well, where do you think smart, sexy, and strong comes from? And I said, from being Latina. So that was the reason why we named that book that, because we knew that those three qualities came from our culture, because we're strong, because we understand the qualities that are so very important. My third book, I think, Red, White, and Latina, was a culmination of my culture. And I realized that even in 2020, 2021, today, there's such a misconception of why we want to preserve our culture. Why do we want to defend it? And why are people still attacking it? Not just our culture, but every other immigrant culture. It makes no sense. And for me, it was extremely important to express that our collective American identity was based on our diversity, and it has been, and it always will be. So for me, really expressing that in Red, White, and Latina expressed how I've really used my culture my whole life in every facet of my life, as I explained. But I think the most important thing that I can express to you guys, to all of you, is that I really found that being Latina, the sincerity, the authenticity, how do I say, the simplicity of being Latino, and I don't say simplicity in a negative way, how it disarms people, how it calms people down. And I will credit the success of my television career to my Hispanic identity. I remember when I started La Corte del Pueblo for locally, and then La Corte de Familia for Telemundo, they loved the fact that I would bring the dichos and that I would talk to somebody in obviously it was a Spanish language show. But when I crossed over to English, they said, you need to maintain some of your Hispanic identity. And I said to them, I said, what do you mean maintain some of it? I mean, it's who I am. I don't understand how you don't want me to be myself. So I found myself, even in the English show, saying dichos in Spanish, talking to people in a way where they understood that the advice that I was giving was wisdom of a strong culture, of a heritage that was meaningful, and a heritage that understood the suffering and the strife, and understood that because we've been discriminated against and because people still judge us, I would be the perfect person to help them understand their struggle, because part of the law is communicating and being heard, and understanding that, sometimes you sue somebody, it's not about the money, it's not about the 15 minutes of fame, but it really is about, I want to be heard. I want you to understand what I am going through, and explain to me. And then I want all of you to think how important and how powerful that is, that we can sit down truly with anybody and sit down, and it doesn't matter who we are, where we came from, what our status is, but that we could truly, in such a genuine way, sit down with somebody and say, please tell me, how can I help you? That has always been my experience with the Latino community. It has always been the power of my communication, the power of my sincerity, that I'm able to walk into a room and somebody that I may not know, but because I am my mother's daughter and I am my father's daughter, I understood that I had strength in identity, and I understood I had strength in character and strength in culture, that if they could go through all the challenges, all the discrimination, even until this day, they go through that, I could do it without a problem, because I was here. I was, for all intents and purposes, an American. I spoke English. And now it was my job to carry their legacy over into my world and be able to explain to people what they went through example and through character and my actions. So I think I've talked too much and I don't want to bore people, but I think that's the most important thing. I think that my culture and being Latina has been the most valuable lesson in communication that I think I could ever measure. And with that, if I could answer any questions, I didn't have a presentation prepared, because it's very strange to have a PowerPoint presentation about somebody, because that's just not real. I wanted you guys to understand who I was and my story and my parents' story, how that's really defined me, that, collectively, like I said before, it's something that we have to celebrate our culture, our stories, our love for this country, and the opportunity has given us to really solidify who we are in America.
So our first question is, this is a question regarding your job. If you were reborn, would you choose the same job as you are currently working with?
Of course. Yep. Well, my mother told me, she goes, mija, I always knew you were going to be an attorney. She used to call me la abogada de los pobres, because she said, since I was a little girl, that I would defend everybody, that I would try to find a solution when my brother or my sister did something wrong or something happened. I was always there trying to defend. So I have to have a lot of faith. I believe in God, and I think that's who I am. I think I always would have picked the law.
Would you recommend someone to be an immigration attorney? And if so, why?
The law is, there's so many different areas of law, so many different areas of law. I you know, like I said, I believe in, I have a strong sense of faith, and I think people are chosen for reasons in life. And I always knew, I think from the moment I met my first boss, I think my parents' story was the ultimate reason why I was going to be an immigration attorney. And I chose to represent professionals, business investors, you name it, people who we do not give enough credit to in the United States. Because when we speak about the immigrant, we speak about, being very blunt, the nanny, the housekeeper, the gardener, the plumber, etc. And first of all, what is wrong with that? Those are the most essential jobs to our life. Every job that we have in the United States is important, and every job that we have in our community is important. So for me, I knew that was important, but I also knew that I needed to start changing the stereotypical way that people saw all of us. We were brilliant. I mean, how many incredibly brilliant people come from different countries, and because of the language barrier, they were doctors in their country, and they're forced because they need to support a family. They have to start from the beginning. And let's say they were a dentist in their country, and then now they're a dental assistant. So for me, it was very important. So would I recommend that to people? I think I recommend the passion. Only that person knows what they're meant to do. Do I love what I do? Of course I do. Do I love what I do right now under this administration? That's another Zoom meeting that we need to talk about. But I love what I do. But again, I think that was supposed to be my passion. The law was supposed to be my passion. So it's very difficult for me to tell you, do it if you don't love it.
If you didn't get your strength and hope from your parents and Latina background, where do you think you'd be now?
I don't know. I don't want to think about that. I'm just pretty blessed that I had such an incredible example. And honestly, part of being an immigration attorney is that every day I meet, and I'm really getting emotional about this, that every day I meet an immigrant who has an incredible story. So maybe if I wouldn't have had my parents, all of my clients would give me that inspiration, I would hope.
What is some advice you would give to an immigrant kid?
It's so cliche to say, if you have a dream, pursue it. It's very cliche. But what I would tell any child who is the daughter or son of an immigrant, or who is an immigrant, is understand that you have worth. Understand that you're here for a reason. Understand that there's a purpose for you. You may not know it yet. Like, I didn't know what my purpose was until I was really in my 20s, until I think I was really in law school. And surround yourself around people that will push you and challenge you to do things you don't want to do. Because if you're complacent, you will never know your strength and the power and potential. So don't let somebody say, just because you are from X country or this, that you do not have enough to be a successful X. So I think that would be my most important advice.
What has been the most rewarding experience of your career?
Oh my goodness, that's such a good question. I think, well, I love what I do. I think that's the most rewarding thing, that every day, it doesn't matter who I talk to. It's just, I really love helping people, and I love what I do. But I think a very rewarding part has been being able to use my culture to catapult me to areas where I never thought that I could be. I never thought I was going to be on television and win 3 Emmys and write 3 books. But I think that the reason is because I was so dedicated to who I was and my community and to the love of the practice of law. So I think that's probably been the best thing, that it's really opened doors I never thought I would be able to kind of walk through.
What was the hardest part about finally realizing it didn't matter how others thought about you and your culture?
The hardest part? The hardest part was that you ended up losing friends. Does that make sense? Or you ended up losing some kind of support. But that was a blessing in disguise, because you realize that, you know, you should only have in two hands, right? The people you count on as friends and family. So that, while it was very hard, it was also very inspiring. And I think also the hardest part was understanding that at one point, I had done, not I had done enough, but I had done enough where it's no longer my turn. I need to carry it on. Somebody else needs to do what I do. So you gain this knowledge, you gain this strength and power in your identity. So now what do you've done everything you think you could do, right? You think you have it all, but what are you supposed to do with that? And I realized my job was to put that somewhere else, give it to my daughter, to young women that I meet every day, encouraging young women to do things, give my ideas to other people and not get credit for them. That's okay. It doesn't matter. So I think that's probably the most important thing.
Who would you say inspired you the most? Did you have any role models growing up?
Well, obviously, clearly my mother and my father. But I had a lot of role models, a lot of men role models. My first boss was straight out of law school, was an incredible person. He, like I said, he was Dominican, and he kind of like, he was the male version of me. He knew how to work it, and he loved it. And I learned a lot from him. I've learned a lot from historical women. I'll never forget that when I was, my first book report when I was in the United States, when I came back, I wrote about Elizabeth Blackwell. And Elizabeth Blackwell was the first female doctor in the United States. And I love history. History is a legacy, right? So history, like I said before, when you write things, when you're an author, it's bringing the past or your feelings to your, almost, it's tangible. So I really loved historical figures, women who really did a lot. And I think that was really important for me.
What is the one thing you would like this generation to understand about immigrants?
Oh my God, that we're so powerful, that we are, oh, you're going to make me cry, that we are so powerful, and that we help each other. And if we don't, we're going to have to start to, and we help each other. And that's dangerous, because if we stick together and people continue to put us as outsiders, they will not understand the strength, and it's going to hit them like they just don't know. So your generation, that's going to happen. So a lot of what we see right now, and I shouldn't compare this to this, but you see the strength of the Black Power movement right now, Black Lives Matter. You see who's supporting, everybody is supporting them. We will come to a stage that I feel that we will come to such a way that we will support each other. And, you know, you guys, the young, your generation, my daughter's generation, are the ones who are going to have to kind of carry it. Like, we've passed the torch, even though I'm very young still. We've passed the torch to you guys. And, you know, you guys are powerful. You are beautiful in every single way. You have to celebrate each other. Do not put any barriers on yourself at all. You're not meant to live with barriers in the United States Absolutely not. It doesn't matter. So remember, you're powerful, you're beautiful, you are strong, you can have everything. Like I said before, being a wife, it's, of course I could be a successful career woman and make dinner for my husband and make coffee for my boss at work. Why? Because that's who I am. I'm okay to do all that. You guys have the license to do anything you want to do.
What was the most challenging case of your career?
Oh my goodness, the most challenging case of my career. Well, I'll talk about two. One when I was very young practicing, and one as a judge. When I started practicing, under, as you're a new attorney, obviously you have to practice and you're not as seasoned and as knowledgeable. So I practiced under my first bosses, and I went to an asylum case, and it was an asylum case that it was a woman who was tortured. And I got so emotional that I didn't know how to ask the question. And I will never forget this. I kind of stopped and I stumbled and I looked at my boss and I said, I can't do this. I can't do this. And my boss looked at me and says, well, you're going to have to. And it gave me, in my mind, I'm like, oh, que come mierda, excuse me. I'm like, how dare he not help me? But I realized what he was doing. He believed in me. So I needed to believe in myself. And I needed to put what she had gone through in me. And that's how I have continued to practice law. And when I have a case for the TV show, I try to sympathize. I try to be on everybody's side to understand it. So when I was talking about before how our culture is such a great way of communication, that's what I try to do. I always try to tell my litigants, we're a team here. And my job is for all of us to talk and try to figure out what went wrong. So I think those are the most important, probably the most important lesson I learned.
Are people surprised you are fluent in English and Spanish? Have you ever overheard comments that people thought you wouldn't understand? How did you handle it?
All the time, every day, all the time. I have blonde hair, which doesn't matter because how many Latinos have blonde hair and fair skin? My brother has dark skin. So number one, that's the stupidity and the ignorance of people, that they don't understand that we come in all colors and et cetera. But it happens every day. Every single day, people will say something and I'll say, cuidado, porque uno nunca sabe quién habla español. But it's, now I consider it a complete, it's a valuable tool. It's a valuable superpower that I have that people don't know. And it happens every single day, but it's okay. And once I say something in Spanish, okay, perdone, señora, ningún problema, sigamos adelante. So it's okay.
Who are your favorite writers?
Oh my God, I love Gabriel Garcia Marquez, of course. Sandra Cisneros, I absolutely love. And I'm ashamed to say that I love really kind of easy, like murder mystery reading where I can read it in half an hour, like James Patterson, that kind of stuff. It's like you can read, but I love reading everything, but those are the fun stuff and things that are memorable. Gabriel Garcia Marquez, Sandra Cisneros. I just read House on Mango Street with my daughter because she had to read it for summer school. So it was really amazing to read it again. But yeah.
What was it like being in the workplace with people who couldn't always relate to your culture?
It was powerful. I felt like I had, how can I explain? It's like, I felt like I had a really important tool because they didn't understand what my culture was so it was something very valuable. And it was a way that really allowed me to have that extra communication and connection with people. And, at first, maybe it was uncomfortable, but after a while, when people really, got to know me, they realized it was good. So for me, it was just kind of like an extra tool that I had in my arsenal that I didn't realize that was so powerful.
Were there ever any times where you would feel reluctant to share your culture because you feared racist comments or being stereotyped?
When I was little, yeah, of course. I think I shared that when I was little, and even in high school. I didn't want people to come over my house because I didn't want people to, this is so stupid. I don't want people, my mother has a very heavy accent. And my dad too, even though he's a very successful surgeon, he's retired now, has a very heavy accent. I didn't want them to come over. I didn't want them to come over to smell my mom's cooking because it could have been different, right? And little did I know that my house became the house where everybody wanted to come to because they loved my mother's cooking and they loved how cool my parents were, and that it was just a very, people were always home, and they loved that. So, it's as when you're little and I was embarrassed, I didn't want to speak Spanish in front of people. I felt I don't want people to kind of label me, but I realized as I grew up, wow, what a valuable experience.
Do you think it's important to learn Spanish as a first or second language or first or second generation Latino in the US?
Yes. Period. Yes, because think about business in today. I mean, I use Spanish every single day with famous baseball players, famous actors, athletes, entertainers, you name it. I use it every day with anybody, with even when I'm going to the market or my favorite grocery store at Ralph's, I know everybody there, and I understand. I know their friends, and we communicate in Spanish, and we talk about families because it's my same market that I've been going to for like 20 years. So not only do I use it in my professional career, I use it as in my personal life. My mother, my father, my brother, my sister, but also in business. Think about it. You will be able. The Latino business that is coming to the United States will be coming a lot more. I think it's only inevitable. You see Mexico coming here to the United States, investors, people from Central and South America, the same. So being able to communicate with a professional or any business person that is coming to the United States to establish a business or do something is important. Look at TV, look at media, look at social media. Look how important the Latino face is becoming in all of those facets. So yes, it's very important that if you can, try to brush up on it.
How do you manage a work-life balance? Do you think there are unreasonable expectations for a working woman to do it all?
Oh yeah, of course there are. And, doing it all and having it all is another Zoom meeting. But it's, having it all and doing it all is such a subjective thing. People always ask me, can you have it all? And I believe that you can, but you may have it all in different stages of your life. Sometimes you have it all in one stage of your life, sometimes you have it all always. But you have to define what having it all is. And you have to, as a woman, understand, because you're the mother, you are the one raising the children at times, not all the times, because we understand the role of a father, thank goodness, has become so much more powerful in our children's lives. But you should not be minimized because you are a working mother, and you should fight for the same opportunities as working fathers. And it's very important. So I think today you guys have, women have hopefully a more important, in a better time. I definitely feel that the pay for women, working mothers, is not the same as men. And hopefully your generation is going to fix that forever. But yes, there's always going to be obstacles, but don't let people tell you that there's obstacles. You do your thing. You manage your life the way you're supposed to, you're supposed to do it. I always say I have different compartments of my life. I don't give anything up for the other. Sometimes it gets challenging, but I always say that it's a privilege. God picked me for my challenges, my specific life challenges for a reason, because he knew I could do that. Nobody else can. So when I get so crazy or I get nervous, I can't do this, I just remember this is a privilege. Calm down, because you were chosen for a reason in that moment of your life. So I feel very strongly about that.
Is there something you look forward to every day in your job as an attorney?
Is there something I look forward every day? Yeah, I think I love the communication with my clients, and I love having a brand new conversation with my client. For me, I'm not your typical attorney where it's all business and it's okay, this is what happened today in your case, and so and so and so and so, and this motion and the court did this. For me, it's, as I said, it's the Latino culture. It's more family oriented. It's more the communication. This is what's happening. So I love having these life conversations with my clients. They know I'm on their team and they know I will do anything for them because I spend the time to explain things and I spend the time to listen. And I think it's something that they really cherish and value.
Is it reassuring to see the people you've helped become successful and progress in their lives?
Oh, it's an amazing feeling. I cry every time I listen or I see a friend, or I call my clients my friends. Something positive happened, or you get emails from a case that you did, even on TV. It's very satisfying and satisfying for them to know that they did the right thing in their life. So yeah, definitely.
Did you have any Latino friends growing up that you could relate to?
Well, when I lived in Mexico, yes. When I came to the United States, oh gosh, not a lot. When in high school, no, not a lot. But I went to an amazing high school that somehow didn't really, they made me feel completely at home. And when I was in grade school, I didn't have any Latino friends. So I was definitely the odd person out. In college, for sure, I was able to meet a lot of Latino friends. I mean, obviously family and friends and all my cousins that I had. So I didn't miss anything like that, but nobody that I could completely relate to. So I really had to pave my own way.
What was your motivation growing up?
My motivation growing up to become a lawyer, or my motivation in general?
Just your motivation to keep going.
I knew that my parents worked their butt off to give me, my brother, my sister a better life. So I could not waste that. And if my mom and dad went through, like I said, unspeakable discrimination and crazy obstacles, I had it so easy. So I had absolutely no excuse.
Sorry, hold on.
No, that's okay. And, like in today, my motivation, while you find your other question, today, my motivation is different. As a mother, what's my motivation every day is as a mother, I just want to be the best example for my child. As a working professional, I want to be the best working professional that I can. I think we all reach a stage in our life where we are unabashedly ourselves, and we understand the strength of our identity and what that means, and what our story means. So that's kind of what also drives me every day.
What is the one case you have won and it has moved your heart the most?
Oh gosh. Oh, there's so many, I don't even know where to start. I think one, and ironically, it was the second Emmy, I think, that we received when we worked for Fox. It was a young man who, in Texas, he and his father moved to a predominantly white neighborhood, and he was attacked by a bunch of kids in the neighborhood, and it was all over the news, etc. So he came to small claims court. He sued them for basically for civil issues, basically saying intentional infliction of emotional distress. And it was a very heart-wrenching story because the kids had already been criminally charged, et cetera. So they came here on a civil basis. So you really see the impact that that these people still felt, years later, or a year or two later. And you saw how each one of them, the group of kids who kind of beat him up simply because he was a different color of skin, and how this young man felt. His father was a professional working for the city where they lived in Texas. And it was really just amazing to see the guilt and the forgiveness and the how much they really wanted to make it right as kids, and it's something that I'll never ever forget. And I still communicate with him, the plaintiff, that is, via Facebook and things like that. It was just a really powerful human story.
Well, that's our last question, where we only have about 2 minutes left. And I just want to share that, over the last 4 weeks, I hear from a lot of adults how wonderful they think this series is. And I think it's because growing up, it's all representation. Growing up, there weren't a lot of Latinos to look up to or to see or to hear about. And we've heard some amazing stories, including yours tonight. And so I thank you for spending this time with us, letting our students hear your story and your parents' story, and providing us with that legacy. And you are certainly making them very proud. I know your aunt is very proud of you, your Tia Luz, who's out there tonight in the audience. I know she's very, very proud of you. So thank you again. Any parting words?
Oh my goodness, what kind of parting words? I mean, I'm going to throw it on to the younger generation. You guys got to make us proud. You have to continue moving our stories, enriching our culture and our society with every lesson you learned from your mom and dad. It's your turn now. Don't let us down.
Thank you. And thank you to all of our participants. Remember, we're back here Thursday night, and we have Cynthia Prida, thank you, Mr. Gallimore, who is the Consul para Asuntos Culturales de Mexico in Los Angeles. So we are very excited to have her straight from the consulate here with us Thursday night. So please join us at 5 p.m. on Thursday. And thank you again, Cristina. Good luck. And
Thank
have a
you,
wonderful
guys.
rest of your week. Have a wonderful,
Yes.
have a better 2020. We're all going to have a better 2020. And good night, everyone. Thanks again. Adios.